This is the second episode of the famous people who passed away in 1744. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. William Barett II, he was born in March 1674 and he died in August 1744. His age was 70 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. A wealthy American planter, lawyer, surveyor, and writer, born in the English colony of Virginia, Barett was educated in London, where he practiced law. Upon his father's death, Barett returned to Virginia in 1705. He served as member of Virginia Governor's Council from 1709 to 1744. He was also the House of Burgesses colonial agent in London during 1720s. His life reflected aspects of both British colonial gentry and emerging American identity. He led surveying expeditions to the border of Virginia and North Carolina. He is considered the founder of Richmond, Virginia. Barett expanded his plantation holdings and commanded county militias during his life. His enterprise included promoting Swiss settlement in mountainous southwest Virginia and iron mining ventures in Germania and Fredericksburg. A member of the Royal Society. John Cruder, he was born in 1678 and he died in August 1744. His age was 66 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. A prominent merchant and politician who served as mayor of New York City and contributed to its early colonial administration. In New York from at least 1696, he became a prosperous merchant and established a successful family. He served as an alderman for 22 years and as 38th mayor of New York City from 1739 until his death in 1744. After moving to the province of New York, he entered mercantile firm of Onzil van Sweden and Valentine Kruger as a shipmaster, slave trader, and factor, and by 1702 he had become a junior partner owning ships of his own. The following year he gained citizenship, being recognized as freeholder of the province on March 2, 1703. Johan Hendrik Schultz, he was born in May 1687 and he died in October 1744. His age was 57 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. A German polymath who discovered the photosensitivity of silver salts, a precursor of modern photographic process. Schultz is best known for his discovery that the darkening in sunlight of various substances mixed with silver nitrate is due to the light, not the heat, as other experimenters believed, and for using phenomena to temporarily capture shadows. Schultz's experiments with silver nitrate were undertaken in about 1717. He found that a slurry of chalk and nitric acid into which some silver had been dissolved was darkened by sunlight, but not by exposure to the heat from a fire. To provide an interesting demonstration of its darkening by light, he applied stencils of words to a bottle filled with the mixture and put it in direct sunlight, which produced copies of the texts in dark characters on the surface of contents. Sarah Churchill, Duchess of Marlborough, she was born in June 1660 and she died in October 1744. Her age was 84 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. A powerful and influential figure in English court, she was a close confidante of Queen Anne and a prominent political influencer of her time. She was an English courtier who rose to be one of the most influential women of her time through her close relationship with Anne, the Queen of Great Britain. The Duchess of Marlborough's relationship and influence with Anne were widely known, and leading public figures often turned their attentions to her, hoping for favor from Anne. The Duchess enjoyed a long and devoted relationship with her husband for more than 40 years, the great general John Churchill, 1st Duke of Marlborough. After Anne's father, King James II, was deposed during the Glorious Revolution, Sarah Churchill acted as Anne's agent, promoting her interests during reigns of William III and Mary II. James Bridges, 1st Duke of Chandos. He was born in January 1673 and he died in August 1744. His age was 71 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was an English nobleman, famous for his extravagant lifestyle, patronage of George Frederick Handel, and commissioning the Chandos anthems. He was an English landowner and politician who sat in the English and British House of Commons from 1698 until 1714, when he succeeded the peerage as Baron Chandos and vacated his seat in the House of Commons to sit in the House of Lords. He was subsequently created Earl of Carnarvon and the Duke of Chandos in 1719. He was a free man of Ludlow in 1697 and was returned unopposed as Member of Parliament for Hereford at the 1698 English general election. In 1700, he was a member of the Old East India Company. He was returned as Member of Parliament for Hereford in contests at the two general elections of 1701 and unopposed at the 1702 English general election. Genvarius Maria Sarnelli. He was born in September 1702 and he died in June 1744. His age was 41 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. An Italian priest and member of the Redemptorist order, known for his devotion to social reform and his extensive religious writing, Sarnelli was one of Alphonsus Maria de Liguori's earliest companions and prolific writer on a range of religious topics. He wanted to become a Jesuit, though was dissuaded from this before working in the hospital for incurables, where his call to the priesthood blossomed. His apostolic zeal knew no limits. He preached missions and aided his friend Liguori in his work. He tended to the sick and helped to get girls out of prostitution despite the threats leveled against him. In 1716, he desired to become a Jesuit, but his father objected due to his age and directed him to learn law instead. The beatification of John Francis Regis was also influence in his decision. He studied jurisprudence and earned his doctorate in civil and canon law in 1722. Princess Thérèse of France. She was born in May 1736 and she died in September 1744. Her age was 80 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was smallpox. She was a daughter of King Louis XV of France, whose brief life was marked by her presence in French royal court during a period of Enlightenment reforms. As a daughter of a king of France, she was Fille de France, daughter of France. This rank allowed her the style of Royal Highness, and she was the most important lady at court after her mother and her elder sister. However, daughters of the king were usually known as Madame, followed by their baptismal name. In case of Louis XV's daughter, when they were young, their baptismal name was replaced by an ordinal number. As per their arrival, accordingly, Madame Thérèse was Madame Sixtime as the sixth daughter. Leonardo Leo. He was born in August 1694 and he died in October 1744. His age was 50 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was stroke. An Italian composer of the Baroque period, celebrated for his contributions to sacred music and his operatic works, He held various posts at the Royal Chapel and continued to write for the stage besides his teaching at the conservatory, after adding comic scenes to Francesco Gasparini's Bajazet in 1722 for performance at Naples. He composed comic operas in Napolitan. His most famous comic opera was Amor Volse Forenza in 1739, best known as La Finta Frascatana, highly praised by Dubois. He was equally distinguished as a composer of serious opera, Demofonte, Farnace, and L'Olympiade, being his most famous works in this branch, and is still better known as a composer of sacred music. Marie-Anne de Maillenella. She was born in October 1717 and she died in December 1744. Her age was 27 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was poison. She was a French noblewoman and one of the famous Maillenella sisters who served as mistresses to King Louis XV, noted for her beauty and court influence despite having achieved the banishment of her predecessor and the king's agreement to her demands. Marie-Anne reportedly refused to fulfill the sexual union with Louis XV several times from November until 19 December 1742, after which she ostentatiously showed herself at the opera so that Louis's choice might be approved, and installed herself in the royal favorite's apartment 3 days after, in preparation for her own elevation to Juse. She arranged a marriage between her favorite sister to the Duke of Lorraguais and secured her a dowry and the office of designated lady-in-waiting for the future bride of the crown prince. Elizabeth Charlotte d'Orléans. She was born in September 1676 and she died in December 1744. Her age was 68 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was stroke. She was a French princess who became Duchess of Lorraine through marriage and played an active role in European political diplomacy. She was a petite fille de France and Duchess of Lorraine and Bar by her marriage to Duke Leopold. She was a regent of the duchy during the minority and absence of her son, and Suajor, Princess of Commercy, from 1737 to 1744. Among her children was Francis I, Holy Roman Emperor and the co-founder of the House of Habsburg-Lorraine. Her father was the only sibling of King Louis XIV of France. She was entitled to the style of Her Royal Highness, as well as the right to an armchair in the presence of the king. Kini Jeremy. She was born in 1664 and she died in December 1744. Her age was 80 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. A Canadian midwife and botanist recognized for her contributions to early botanical studies in New France, Canada, and her knowledge of medicinal plants. In 1702, she settled in Montreal with husband, where she pursued her studies and research in botany and midwifery. She was particularly interested in medicinal practices of indigenous population of Canada. She studied these medicinal plant uses and further discovered many remedies. She applied these findings to her knowledge of women's bodily experiences. She was one of the earliest botanists in Canada and the first female naturalist known to date. Her knowledge of herbal plants increased her reputation and practice as a midwife, as she was able to apply these uses specifically to women's bodily experiences such as abortion, pregnancy, and birth. Mihai Rakovița. He was born in 1660 and he died in July 1744. His age was 84 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a Moldovan prince who ruled intermittently over Moldavia and Wallachia, known for his attempts to stabilize the regions during political turmoil. He was a prince on 3 separate occasions from 1703 to 1726 and Prince of Wallachia on 2 occasions between 1730 until his death. His rules overlapped with accession of Phanariotes in the Danubian principalities. He is considered himself a Phanariote for the duration of his last rule in Moldavia and his rules over Wallachia. He was appointed ruler of Moldavia by Ahmed III, the Sultan of Ottoman Empire, but had to continue fighting off other candidates for the throne, as well as their boyar supporters. To counter these, the prince relied on Greek supporters. Nobility, his allies, were the first members of the Rossetti family. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.